Hey, y'all. So I want to keep going where we are. That in talking about I am unshakable and Peter walking on the water, that it was the word of Jesus, right? It was the word of the Father that gave him the confidence, the foundation that was his basis for stepping out of the boat. And I want to read a couple of verses from Colossians chapter 1. This says, Colossians 1:16, for it was in him, this is Jesus, that all things were created in heaven and on earth, things seen and things unseen, whether thrones, dominions, rulers, or authorities. All things were created and exist through him by his service, intervention in and for him. And he himself existed before all things, and in him all things consist. All things consist. Let's go to Hebrews chapter 1, verse 3. I'm going to read the Amplified Version because it's just beautiful. And then we're going to read the King James Version because it's a little less wordy. But it says, he is the sole expression of the glory of God, the light being, the outraying or radiance of the divine. And he is the perfect imprint and very image of God's nature, upholding and maintaining and guiding and propelling the universe by his mighty word of power. When he had by offering himself accomplished our cleansing of sins and riddance of guilt, he sat down at the right hand of the divine majesty on high. So this verse tells us that he is the perfect imprint, Jesus, and the very nature and image of God. And he upholds, it says upholding and maintaining and guiding and propelling the universe by his mighty word of power. The King James says, who being the brightness of his glory and the express image of his persons, and upholding all things by the word of his power. When you have the word of God on a matter, then you can rest assured and be firm, steadfast, and unshakable. When everything else is finished shaking, when everything else falls apart, that rock, that word of God will remain. And so going back to the verse into our account in Matthew where Peter walked on water. So he said, come. Peter has the word of the Lord on an issue. So Peter is confident that if the Lord said come, he's going to walk on water. He steps out of the boat and he walks on the water. And he came toward Jesus. But when he perceived and felt the strong wind, he was frightened and began to sink. All right, so at that moment, right, when he perceived and his senses realized the storm and situation around him, what happened? He began to sink. What was then his foundation? Had the word of the Lord changed? No. Jesus didn't say, oh, stop coming, it's windy, there's a storm. Not at all. Because he issued the command, he gave the word in the middle of the storm. It was already stormy. So the word of the Lord didn't change. But what Peter was trusting in changed. His foundation changed. His basis no longer was the Lord said come. His basis was it's windy. There's a storm. And so he began, when you step off of the foundation of the word of God, are you going to be shaken? You're going to be shaken. Because his word is the only thing that is unchangeable, right? That's the only thing that we can cling to and hold on to that's not going to shift. But of course, he saw the wind. It says he perceived and felt, right? So his emotions, his fear got out of line. But he cried out to the Lord, save me. And instantly, Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. What I want us to see out of this is a very clear example of a shift in foundation. And that it doesn't have to be like the actual process of building a house, right? Because Peter was not in the middle of actually building a house. It was moments, right? And so every moment we have to remember and remember and remember, what is our foundation? When something happens, when the circumstance changes, when the storm is felt, right? What is our sure and steadfast foundation? We'll pick up here tomorrow. I'll see you then. Bye, y'all.